So just a heads up, we are not really public speakers, but we're really good ramblers. And today is more narrative than educational, so at the very least, we should be entertaining. Cool. All right, we'll jump right into it. Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to do with that.
I'm Jamie. Hi, everyone. I'm really into stuff like pinball and nerding out about design stuff and teaching Munjo unnecessary tricks, which he's very, you're not doing tricks right now, but always on alert for some snacks. I already kind of forgot where I was heading, but anyways. I was born in Harvey, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago's South City limits. I was raised in that immediate surrounding area as well. I grew up in a pretty normal Mexican family. Hey, there I am. All right, that's more helpful. I knew something wasn't happening, right? So my dad immigrated here on foot when he was about 14 and settled in Chicago. My mom was born in Chicago. Her family moved here in the 50s towards the end of the Korean War so that my grandpa could join the army. I have two younger brothers who are very technically inclined. I have one older brother who's very creatively inclined and made sure I was exposed to a lot of subculture growing up. It was mostly hip-hop music, graffiti, breakdancing, lowriders, stuff like that. When I turned 16, I got a job at a music venue. I was filling in for a weekend, and the guy who went on vacation never came back. So I had a new job at a music venue where I was exposed to new subculture and where I learned about punk music and ska shows and mail-order merch and DIY zines back before anyone was using the internet. A couple years later, as I'm 18, I found myself working in a t-shirt shop, and that's where I learned about screen printing, embroidery, heat pressing, got my first commissioned project there. I spent the next 10 or 15 years learning all sorts of design software thanks to my brother who went to school for graphic design and being around all of this merchandising equipment. And I basically did that for the next 10, 15 years and helping bands get merch and doing social media marketing in the MySpace era, if everyone remembers that. That about catches me up.
All right. Hey, I'm Amber. I'm the other human part of the biz. I was born in Miami, Florida. My dad came from Cuba when he was a teenager, and my mom was from the Chicago south suburbs, which is where we both have a tie. I have 4 half-siblings, but I grew up more like an only child, kind of hanging out with my mom and stepdad in those Chicago suburbs. They had a small print shop where I spent a lot of time hanging out, made a lot of art with like paper scraps and Sharpies and like tools that I shouldn't have been touching around a print shop, but you know, it's okay. I did a lot of like small jobs around there as I got older, and eventually would go to art school at Columbia College, and I ended up getting a BFA in advertising art direction. Never worked in advertising. That's fine. All my classmates were getting internships that were probably paying very little to nothing, so I kept working in my corporate life at a hotel and eventually really hated it, so I quit my job and I moved to Japan to teach English. So in Japan, I finally had time to like make art for myself and learn that I like coffee eventually. And ended up spending a lot of time at a little cafe that would later become a friend of mine on Instagram because they liked my doodles and I liked their coffee shop. So they would invite me to do like a chalkboard wall for their anniversary party. And a little nervous, but I said, okay. They gave me some coffee and cake, so we're all evened out. So it was around that same time that Jamie and I actually started kind of doing like a little collaborative art project, and we learned that we really enjoyed working together, and we just casually talked about like, yeah, we should do more stuff like this in the future. Well, like a month or two later, I moved to a new job in Tokyo, big city, went to go renew my work visa, and they said, no, there's an error on your document. So future came quicker than I thought, and I moved back to Chicago. No plan, no idea what I was going to do. And we said, all right, well, let's make some art together. There we go.
Oh, no. There we go. So Elise mentioned that we're a store, and that's what most people consider us. We have a spot in downtown Raleigh, right next to Raleigh Times. We're in the middle of so much stuff. So that's where a lot of people are finding us. But we actually have only been doing that for the last couple of years. Before that, we had started doing pop-ups. It was just us and Munjo, ordering pizza, going to bars, and trying to sell people shirts, baiting them with pizza. It worked pretty well. We started doing the other pop-up markets and the festivals around the area. We met a lot of really cool artists that were like-minded, a little bit counterculture compared to some of the stuff that we were making appearances with. And this led to us doing group shows. We did group projects, art shows, live art series. Our Basement Battle series was pretty popular. We just kind of did the things that we felt our art scene needed. And it worked out, and a lot of that we tribute to Kismet, honestly. We got asked to do this talk, and we were given the option of the Kismet theme, and we looked at each other and was like, that is clearly our story. So we could ramble all morning. Honestly, our first draft had a lot in it that we had to cut down. But we want to focus on a few times that we feel like the Kismet that came into play was just such perfect timing for us and kind of kept us moving forward. We've changed a lot over the years, and I guess these are just some of our most notable times.
All right. So early, when we first started doing these pop-ups, we would pretty much sign up for every market possible. We don't care. Rodeo Fest, whatever. We're doing it. Like, there's people, we're going. We did like breweries, coffee shops, fields. We did a freezing cold parking deck in Lynchburg, Virginia in December. Awesome. Drank lots of coffee there. They were okay, but like we, after talking to other people, we knew like we could be doing better and we should be kind of like getting more sales and just making more out of it. And we were getting kind of burned out running around chasing all these markets. And we just felt like people maybe weren't really understanding our art style. They weren't really our audience. And so after a couple years, we noticed that Adult Swim was coming to Raleigh. Does anybody know what Adult Swim is? A little bit, yeah? Bob's Burgers, Aqua Teen for us older.
Rick and Morty,
yes.
Of course.
Oh yeah, Rick and Morty. Anyway, so the ads for this event mentioned having local art vendors, and we were like, oh, we should try to do it. Let's check it out. So we emailed them, and they said, yeah, it's only $300 for the booth for a few hours, and we're like, that's not gonna happen. Like, we don't have $300. That's a lot of $1 buttons we're gonna have to sell to make that money back to begin with. And so we said, all right, not gonna happen. So we kind of let it go, and then a few months later, the day before, just so happened, we got this email, and they were apparently not able to fill any of those spots, and they asked us if we wanted to do it for free. And we were like, yeah, we'll do it for free. So, yeah. So we did it, loaded up, went out there, and it turned out to be like the best event we had done so far. These were our people, like grown-ups watching cartoons, climbing silly carnival things shaped like a cat's insides. I made it.
Amber did it.
By the way, I smacked it. Okay. Anyway, so it went really well, and by the end of it, we were just like, holy cow, like, this is what we've been missing. Like, we need to find our people or make events for our people. So it just ended up being like the little morale boost that we needed to keep going, and especially when we kind of felt like this is not for us. So yeah, that's your turn.
We did get invited to do
I forgot.
more of that tour as well. We did well enough and were buddy enough with the staff that by the time we left, we had asked if we could do future events, and we ended up with them for the next 3 cities.
Yeah, we drove to Charleston, South Carolina, got off work, drove 3 hours, I think, got there just in time, set up, hung out, drove back home at like 3 in the morning. It was awesome.
And then we did it again to go to Knoxville.
We went to Knoxville and we stayed there because that's too far. But it turned out perfect, yeah. Whoop.
In 2020, uh-oh.
We didn't do it, just go.
Oh, okay. Okay. In 2020, we were really starting to feel the weight of the pandemic, and we were looking for ways to be more profitable without having to raise prices or anything that was, we wanted to make it easier on everyone and survive, essentially. It just so happened, as we're trying to figure out what to do, a friend of ours had a screen print shop, a fully functioning screen print shop, that he was looking for ways to utilize, also feeling the weight of the pandemic. And we had talked about doing merchandise before. Back in the day before we moved here, I ran a couple screen print shops. So I had the experience, potential clientele. It's such a big task to take on, though. There's so much equipment, it costs so much. It's a really big thing to invest in if you don't know if you're gonna wanna keep on doing it or if you can even do it to begin with. Amber was new to the process, so it was a very, very lofty idea until this came along. We worked out a deal with him. We were able to use his shop on an as-needed basis as long as we had our own supplies. Supplies also aren't very cheap, but it just so happened at this time, we were also approved for a small grant. This grant funded our entire setup, so we were able to, without having to research much since we had the experience, buy the equipment and be printing in the shop within the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think that's about
Yeah.
We're already on the next screen.
You're sitting.
Go ahead.
Oh, all right. All right, so around the same time, actually, well, actually in 2020, before the pandemic was really here, before we accepted it, I kind of had my eye on this empty storefront that I would walk past practically every day and was like, you know, what if we just could rent it? That'd be cool. And I was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen, but I said, oh, let me just email and find out about it. It's probably way out of our budget. It was formerly the Holly Aiken bag store that a lot of people still think we are, but that's okay. So I emailed the owner and I was like, hey, you know, just tell me about the space. And I didn't really get a response, and really at that time, it was not a place for us. Like, we weren't ready to move. It was just me being nosy. So a few months later, fast forward to summer 2020, we were really feeling the impacts of pandemic, of course, and then just the lack of people anywhere in downtown. All the streets were boarded up, and it was just like, why do we have a storefront here? This is stupid. We could be in a storage unit and have the same traffic unit or traffic flow. So we considered moving all our stuff into storage and just kind of rethinking what we were going to do with everything. But it just so happened that when we were really thinking, all right, this is it, I got an email in response to that email 6 or 8 months before saying, hey, let's talk about this space. And we're like, okay, let's talk about it. So we had some chats back and forth, and eventually we worked out a deal where we could rent just the first floor. It was actually 2 levels, we didn't know. And they would let us rent it temporarily and just see how things go. So we figured, all right, let's do it. So October 2020, we moved in and just planned to stay through the holidays. And we just figured, all right, let's make the most of these like 3 months. So we kind of hit the ground running. We brought in all the other artists that we knew that had stuff that was probably sitting around also doing nothing. And we just filled it in with as much as we could of other people's too. And that new shop ended up giving us like tons of visibility, traffic. People were just starting to come out a little bit in the fall. There's words of a vaccine coming out. So people were getting excited, you know? And we just started getting a lot more activity there, and even though it was only 300 feet from our old space, it like gave much more positive reaction. And that led us to have a bit more hope, a little more confidence, and we went ahead and signed a 3-year lease, took over the whole 2 floors somehow, not sure what they were thinking, but it's working. And now we carry like 20 or more artists from mostly Raleigh, and in addition to our own stuff, and now we're doing a lot more work, for people. Yay! Oh yeah, is there another slide for me?
Can we go back to regular image slides?
You have the thing. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep going. You just look at that. Anyway, so a lot of like things that we kind of accomplished, we would call Kismet. Those moments of like being in the right time and place. But I think Kismet's only so meaningful on its own. If it weren't for like the consistent work that we were doing leading up to that, those opportunities wouldn't have been quite as impactful. The Adult Swim thing only worked out because we were pretty well put together as like a brand by then. And we purposely had flexible jobs where we could, the day before, say, yeah, screw it, let's go to Knoxville tomorrow. Our friend with the print shop, we only met when we were forcing ourselves to go to networking things like this, even though we were super uncomfortable. And the new shop, like the big shop move, really came after years of like relationship building and being mindful of what we kind of wanted and what we definitely didn't want. So kind of leads us to wonder if Kismet is really a thing.
As much as we do believe that a lot of that was not just timing, but the result of hard work, there's one super Kismet-y element, and I know this is what everyone wants to hear about, and that's how we got Munjo. Because Munjo came with no effort, no planning at all. He, back in 2016, he was about 4.5 when the family that he had grown up with decided to give him up. And where we're from, if you volunteer your animal, you have a little bit of time to, Jesus Christ, I can't believe this. I didn't even know I had an alarm set. So anyway, so at about 4.5, the family that had raised Munjo was giving him up. And where we're from, you have a couple days to come back and get your pet, or they put them down. They left him to be put down. But pure chance, so the real like friend of an uncle who knew a guy type situation. The ex-boyfriend of the daughter of the family found out where Munjo was, and with not a whole lot of time left for him, he scooped him up, took him home, where he had 2 very allergic little sisters. So from what I understand, he was basically living stashed in a bathroom in the basement or something where he could be out of the way, and not by choice, but by necessity. And this kid had an uncle who happened to be a former boss / close friend of mine. They knew I was working from home. They knew I was good with dogs. So I got this text in the middle of the night, this dirty little pile of floof, freshly cut and bathed from his mess in the pound. And they said, do you want to take him in? He needs a place to live. And I said, no. I do not need an ankle biter. I don't need him chewing on my things and barking all night. Then they told me why he needed a place to stay. So I said, yeah, I'll be awake, bring him by. They brought him by. He was not pumped to be there. He was not a social animal at all. I gave him his space, and he lived under a table for a couple of weeks. I thought I had a picture of a bunch of cute pictures of him, but this still works.
They're all cute pictures.
He eventually was comfortable, and he spent the next couple of months or so just laid out next to my laptop on my work table, not doing much of anything else. And we were pretty inseparable after that. But this all happened right as Amber was coming back from Japan. So all these plans that we had kind of loosely been planning kind of fell apart. We all ended up in the south suburbs of Chicago with Munjo and just a general idea to do something. So I don't know, maybe it's Kismet, maybe Kismet isn't a thing, we don't really know. We're just pretty confident that our work was not the only thing that made us successful, because a lot of people put in the work. But we put in the work, we're vocal about it. So yeah, I guess we're a pro Kismet team. But yeah, if you feel like you're stuck with your art and stuff, we do that all the time. If you want to rely on Kismet, do it, but don't stop making stuff. Keep working, keep trying to make things happen, and if it's gonna happen, it's not gonna happen on its own. That's all. Thank you, guys.
Y'all, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Let's give it up again for Amber and Jamie.
High
Munjo. All right, we have a little bit of time for a Q&A. I would love to get some questions from the audience. If you have a question, raise your hand. We have a microphone. Oh, Katie.
Why Raleigh?
The rent was too damn high in Chicago.
That was definitely part of it. But this is kind of attributable to Kismet as well. At this time when Munjo came to us and we were both just kind of like, well, what do we do? A freelance designer that I had been outsourcing to was actually from Raleigh. She had been living in Chicago, which is where I had met her. And for whatever reason, she decided to come back to Raleigh. And as I mentioned what was going on, and I was like, I kind of want to move, don't really have any solid plans. She was like, oh, go to Raleigh. There's a lot of cool stuff happening there. There's some great art. And
I got nosy and was like, well, is it reasonable there? I don't know. I've never been here.
Neither one of us had ever been here before.
Of course, where do you find this information? Craigslist. So I went on Craigslist, and I've randomly saw a family that was looking for a dog sitter for a month. So little chats with them, and we ended up with a place to stay, getting paid in a nice little house in Durham for a month while we bought ourselves some time to go look of like, where can we actually move to for real.
And downtown Raleigh was still affordable at the time. So we found the perfect space where we launched the whole Munjo thing. But Kismet is why Raleigh.
What's up, dudes?
This guy. What's up?
Yeah, this isn't a question. It's more just like props to you two, because like I remember, buying a T-shirt. I don't know what year it was, outside of the pit, out of a
Jed made
pizza
it happen.
box. What's that?
Said you made it happen.
Not me.
A little bit.
But no, and just like the idea of a success story of like literally selling shit out of a pizza box, But like it's part hustle and it's part doing cool shit, because everywhere I go with that pizza shirt, or like, where did you get that?
Yeah.
Which is true, like, again, props to you for the hustle, but also creating things that people love. Because now my kids love it, and my kids want your stuff. And there's something about that that's like best local brand, but it's like creating a culture around the things that you do that I think is what Raleigh's really great at. It's like helping people like yourself turn your dream into destiny, whatever it may be. So just literally keep it up, and just props for that. So it's good to see you on the stage.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I will say that we had talked about doing art, and I had even toyed with a brand back in the day, but if we hadn't have moved here together when we did, ended up where we did, like I really don't think any of this would have been put into motion. But yeah, it's because we did it, we vocalized things, we put the intention out there. I don't know exactly how we ended up invited to this, but Kismet, I guess. But thank you, man, seriously, appreciate that.
Got a question up here or back there? Yep, you go ahead.
For those of us in the room who don't know about the basement parties, could you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, those were the Basement Battle series. Those Amber's entire project, when she pitched it, I was like, I like the idea. I don't know if it'll work. It worked really well. But what we did was we took 4 artists, 8 artists, put them into 2 rounds of 4, put them in front of an easel with a bag of Sharpies. We gave them a surprise theme when we started the clock, and then we gave them, I think, 45 minutes to create a piece with Sharpies on a 4x4 panel matching that theme. And then we had people vote on it, and I don't think we ever had any real value prizes, but we gave out some free stuff just to make it an interactive thing, you know. Someday we want to bring it back. The venue we used was in a basement, which is why we called it that, and that is gone now. But we want to bring it back. We want to bring it back strong, and we would like to turn it into something where, yeah, we'll put this out there. We would like to find a place to throw these live art series.
If you know of a
anyone
place,
knows.
feel free. We've got some in mind, but
Yeah, but it'll come back.
two
It'll come back
ideas.
this year. But we just don't know exactly how yet. But sooner than you think, I will say.
Did that make sense? Yeah.
Ooh, it's not our rooftop, but man, that would.
Guys, the roof is not our bar. Tell your friends. Everybody thinks it is.
I hadn't thought about exploring that, but that might be something to at least ask about.
Yeah. We'll see.
Note made.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
No. Uh-oh. Gonna get grilled.
All right. Hi, guys.
Whoa.
So I know my story of how I met you guys. It's pretty Kismet-y too, but how did you find the rest of the misfit artists that are in your collective?
It was a little bit Instagram, also finding those 1 or 2 other weird artists at festivals where we didn't fit in, and then Emerge, if anyone knows that place, RIP. But I actually started working there as a bartender when they first opened, and eventually started doing marketing there, and just being there was kind of a little bit of a hub. Like, you could always go there, find some weird art thing going on, and meet other artists, whether or not you knew what was gonna happen.
We definitely met a lot of people from
Yeah.
the events. And so many places we traveled, and we would meet other artists that were from back towards our area who also were looking for their place in the market scene. And we took every single person's information down. I don't even think we knew why at the time. We were just like, we need to keep in touch. Let's connect on everything. And when we did have opportunities to do stuff, so much outreach, so much hanging out at Emerge. Honestly, in those couple of years, I think almost every artist that we had met even beforehand eventually met at Emerge as well, whether it was our events or not. But I hate to say networking, but socializing,
Just go out.
same
You
difference,
can't meet people if you never go out anywhere. So
basically.
go do it.
1 last question in front, and then we'll.
Might be a nice one to end on. Aside from obviously buying your wares and helping find a new home for Basement Battle, what's one thing the community can do to help you guys now?
There's a couple things. One is the ongoing most helpful thing, and that's just tell people about us. If you appreciate what we're doing, tell a friend about us, because you don't know what they're going to get into or who they're going to tell about us. And I don't like to put any weight into the financial side of things, but the more people that enjoy us and spend money with us, the more we have to finance these other projects we want to do. But the other big thing, which is very temporary, is if you take out your phone and you scan this QR code right here,
Oh, yeah.
you'll be able to vote for us for Best Local Brand 2022. And that doesn't necessarily win us a prize, but it gives us a status boost, which we can then use to go to corporate entities and that and say, hey, we have this project idea. We want to use this to boost the art scene. We need someone to help. Look at these things we've done. And there is one other ongoing way that you can help, which I guess we should have included a link to this too. We started a Patreon. We started a very basic, like $2 a month, like help us out tier. For like $5, you can get a monthly sticker from us and little unreleased goodies in that. And then our big tier is a little bit more. It's a postcard program that we actually use to give checks to other artists for just a small commission project where we have them design a postcard that we print and distribute for them. We're developing like a feature side of it where we can more actively boost other artists. But all of that, again, is funded through the Patreon. So the more people that partake in that, the more we have to not just do our own stuff, but to boost other artists, to create more community projects, to rent venues, to throw things like the basement battle. But yeah, the easiest one is just tell people about us. Yeah. Tell them you met Munjo and he was fantastic and they need to meet him too.
Munjo did not pee or poop on the stage, so wonderful. Everyone, thank you so much. Let's give one more round of applause to Jaime and Amber.